that. We're going to move on to the next part of the conference, and I'm delighted to welcome Sam Ogle to the stage, along with Jack. And Sam's mum is over in the audience doing technical things to support the presentation. Sam from Dream Big, Live Bigger is going to share his story with us. He says the highs and the lows, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about this. There are some things on the table that Sam's brought along, which gives some of his background, and his biography is in the programme. So I'm going to be quiet and let Sam do the talking. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you for inviting me to speak here today. I am very excited to be sharing my views and experiences with you, and hopefully helping to support with your goal of strengthening the allied health professionals community. Living with quadriplegic cerebral palsy means I am one of your best customers. I have used dozens of services in the past 17 years, and this will continue throughout my life. I have had many ups and downs for various reasons. However, there is a golden thread that runs through everything. Something that, if done well, can transform healthcare significantly for the better. However, if lacking, can produce poor outcomes or even serious consequences. The golden thread is communication in all its forms. Communication between health practitioners. Communication between health practitioners and other services. And, most importantly, communication with the service users. That golden thread is at the very heart of connected care, where communication links every person, service and process together to get the cogs turning for truly joined-up support. The title of my presentation is inspired by a very well-known paediatrician in Sunderland, now retired, who coordinated my care for much of my life. Her ability to communicate with me, my family and other practitioners was her superpower. She embodied the essence of connected care, ensuring that everyone around me worked as one team. Her compassion, knowledge, honesty and openness always made me feel safe, supported and cared for, even in some very dark and difficult times. To me, connected care is so important. With a complex disability and multiple health conditions, it is easy to become overwhelmed by the number of appointments, treatments, and the number of different people involved. It can be so hard to join the dots and see yourself as a whole person. Connected care is what joins those dots, creating a complete picture of me as a person, not a collection of conditions. When I think about the hundreds of people involved in my healthcare over the years, the outcomes have always been so much better for me when there was a good dialogue, when things were explained to me, when people read my notes before meeting me, when things were followed up, when referrals were made, when fellow workers were informed and consulted, and when services talked to each other. Communication leads to coordination, and coordination leads to better outcomes. I would like to take the opportunity today to tell my story, to share my highs and lows, hopefully inspire you, share some ideas for positive change, and send the message loud and clear that no one's health will suffer through too much communication, but definitely will with too little. On your tables, I have distributed some copies of my one-page profile. I created this for my new academic year in college to support people to meet my needs. I thought I'd share it with you today as an example of an effective way to communicate a lot of information. Something like this is very useful as it has everything on one page and saves you from having to tell the same story over and over. I understand that some people may not be comfortable in sharing so much personal information, but the benefits outweigh my worries about things like that. This profile focuses on my education, however, it could easily be adapted to focus on health. If you think it could be useful in your area of work, please contact me and I will share the template. There are QR codes with a link to send me questions. I will type my responses after the conference and you will be mailed a copy. I will be round during breaks and at the end of the conference too, so please feel free to come and chat to me. The term expert by experience can be applied to many things, and my family and I have earned this title in a variety of contexts over the last 17 years. When it comes to health services, I can certainly say I have had my fair share of experiences. I have been there, done that, and got a lot of t-shirts along the way. I am extremely grateful for the healthcare I have received over my life and have enormous respect for healthcare workers who, at times, have very difficult and stressful jobs. Without these people, I would simply not be here. At 17 days old, I suffered a massive cardiac arrest. On a dark night, I was in the car, driving on a busy road with my parents, and I stopped breathing. My mum resuscitated me, while my dad called the ambulance. By the time I reached the hospital, I had no pulse. A huge team of health workers worked tirelessly to bring me back. They didn't give up, even when my chances were very slim, and they saved my life. I had suffered lack of oxygen for an hour, which is the cause of my disability and all my health conditions. I don't remember a thing about my early experiences, thank goodness, but I know that I was very poorly for a very long time. I needed emergency heart surgery on the night of my cardiac arrest. I spent months in hospital with a very grave prognosis, both physically and mentally. It was expected that I would be profoundly disabled in every way. I suffered 2 further out of hospital collapses as a baby and went into renal failure due to the damage caused by lack of oxygen to my kidneys. I was on a huge amount of medication, a restricted diet, had problems with my immune system, breathing difficulties, and a whole lot of serious complications in my early years. I had a hypertensive crisis when I was 4, again due to my damaged kidneys, and I began experiencing problems with my joints. But even back then, I must have had the fighting spirit like I have now. I wasn't going to be beaten, and I am here today to be able to tell the tale. At the age of 5, I had my first osteotomy. For those unfamiliar with big, bony surgery, it basically means a huge operation to repair the hip. I have had a further 2 osteotomies since then. I have had lots of other operations too, including plates in my knee, tendon releases, loads of Botox, and I don't mean the cosmetic kind. I've had kidney stones removed through my back, and when I was 11, I had to have most of my baby teeth surgically removed and my gums peeled back. A side effect from one of my medications had hardened my gums. I've lost count of how many surgeries I've had, but it is well over 20. I have been supported by physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, and occupational therapy since I was a baby. As I grew, it became apparent that my physical disability was very severe. I cannot sit or stand up unaided. I can't roll over in bed. I basically don't have any mobility or functional movement and rely on support for everything. My house is full of all sorts of equipment and gadgets. My wheelchair is the most important thing in the world to me. It is my legs, my independence and my freedom. So far, I have only told you about my physical health. However, I have experienced periods of time in my life where things have been too much and I have found it difficult to cope. My mental health has been affected significantly as a direct result of having a disability. You might think the biggest impact on my mental health would be my lack of independence, or the pain I experience, or the huge restrictions I have on my life. These all do have an impact, but by far the worst is the constant battle with services of all kinds to get the support I need. The complexity of my needs and the sheer number of services I access is overwhelming and very difficult to manage. This is where connected care becomes vital. It is the practical bridge that helps services work together so that people like me can cope with having complex needs. Hopefully, I have demonstrated that I am fully qualified and entitled to call myself an expert in this area. The points I am making today are seen through my lens, but equally apply through the eyes of others. Experts by experience are essential voices in connected care. Our lived experience turns fragmented systems into collaborative networks that see the person, not just the patient. So, I had a very difficult start in life, and growing up was very challenging. Life for our family was centered around me, my disability, and keeping me healthy. Not only did we manage this, but as I got older, I began to thrive, as many of my health conditions improved or stabilized. I always attended mainstream school. From being a baby, it was clear that the grave predictions were not at all accurate. I have a profound physical disability, but, thankfully, do not have a learning disability. I have dyscalculia, which is like dyslexia, but for maths. I have some issues with memory and organisational skills, but I still managed to pass 5 GCSEs. Now I am in college doing what I love, learning to be a football coach. My advocacy journey began when I was 12 years old, when I joined the Sunderland Stars Send Youth Voice group, and soon after, Sunderland Youth Council. I then trained to be a young commissioner to evaluate services in Sunderland. I was very busy with local youth voice and enjoying the opportunities they gave me. I have been well recognised for my contributions. I was even on the interview panel last year for the new CEO of Together for Children. In 2022, I began to advocate nationally when I joined FLAIR, the Department for Education's Youth Advisory Group. I have been attending meetings in London 6 times a year ever since. Being part of FLAIR has brought so many opportunities and has enabled me to contribute to discussions that feed back to high-level decision makers. I am able to attend ministerial roundtables, speaking to government ministers and advocating for change. I am now also Disabilities Officer for Newcastle College, using my advocacy experience to improve accessibility and systems for young people with SEND. Every year, there is a national conference run by the Council for Disabled Children called Youth Voice Matters. I am able to help children and young people who come from all over the country to get their voices heard. In 2024, I was proud to be the conference chair alongside the CDC's CEO and director, and also make a speech. I will be at the next one in February 2026, co-chairing again and running workshops. Bridget Phillipson is my local MP and, as you will know, the Secretary of State for Education. I spoke to her about SEND issues at a constituents meeting earlier this year. This resulted in a private meeting with her at my home to discuss things in more detail. I must have made an impression, as I was invited to her ministerial summer reception in London in July, but I was away, so couldn't attend. From a health perspective, I have been involved in research projects my whole life, particularly for speech and language therapy. As a young child, I worked on a long project researching the effects of experimental speech therapy for children with speech difficulties and dysarthria, like me. I had to attend weekly therapy for a long time, but I also benefited from the therapy as it improved my speech and helped me control my breathing. I now run an annual training session for speech and language therapy students at Newcastle University, which I have been doing for 3 years now. I have been published twice in the British Academy of Childhood Disabilities quarterly newsletter, where I have shared insights into my life as a disabled young person. My local GP surgery invites me in every now and then to speak to trainee doctors to support their understanding of treating people with disabilities. Last year, I started my own business called Dream Big Live Bigger. I am a disabled rights activist with the goal of challenging ableism, helping people understand equity and improving health, education and social care services. One of my big passions is to break down the barriers in sports and physical activities so everyone can participate. I have been widely recognised for my advocacy and work to support young people with disabilities. I have even been featured on Look North and ITV News in the past year. In 2021, I won the Sunderland Young Achievers competition, which was my first prestigious award. When leaving school, I was given the Young Ambassador Award, and last year in college, I was named Student of the Year for Sport and won the award for commitment and resilience, and also Coach of the Year. I recently travelled to Liverpool as a finalist for the National Diversity Awards in the Positive Role Model category. I got down to the final 8 out of hundreds of nominations, which I am extremely proud of. I posted this video recently on social media to celebrate being shortlisted for the National Diversity Awards, which showcases some of the work I do. So now you know all about me, my journey with my health, and my journey through life so far. I'm healthier than I have ever been, and I want to stay that way. There is so much useful, widely available advice out there about nutrition, exercise, and healthy lifestyles. However, throw a physical disability into the mix, and the picture is very different. People with any type of disability are at a major disadvantage when it comes to staying healthy. How easy is it for me to access things that help keep me healthy? My local gym, for example, or the local park when I was a child. Not only am I disadvantaged physically, but I also have a communication disability. How easy is it for me to make an appointment to see my GP? I cannot do this over the phone, and online appointments are hardly ever available. Appointment making systems generally rely on people being able to pick up a phone, speak clearly, communicate effectively, and be able to record the date and time effectively. They also depend on you being available at certain times of the day, for example, first thing in the morning, or all the appointments go. So, basically, in the minefield of appointment making, I don't stand a chance. This system takes away my opportunity and my independence, making me rely on others. Today, with our technology, there is no excuse not to have more accessible options. I have used eConsult, which is great, but only good for things that are not urgent. Digital connected care platforms like this can make access fairer, but only if designed inclusively, with real user input. I always say, if you get things right for the most vulnerable, the most complex, the ones with the highest needs, then you get it right for everyone. Focusing on the masses is an example of ableism. Right from the design stage, it is critical to consider accessibility and inclusion, and I don't just mean a disabled loo. I mean in every aspect of a building, a service, a website, and in our practices. Disability can happen to anyone at any stage in their life. It is the one protected characteristic that could affect you tomorrow, or next year, or when you are 89. You could need grab rails, or a walking aid, or a wheelchair, or large print, or accessible toilets, or have dementia. I could go on and on. So, by making services equitable, by making sure everyone can access them equally, that is true equality, and how everyone needs to be thinking. It is much more difficult to try and rectify things in hindsight. The only way to achieve equity is by communicating and working directly with people most at risk of exclusion. When I say that communication is paramount, I don't just mean how services communicate with users and between themselves. True connected care is two-way. It allows people like me to communicate back with confidence, independence, and choice. Physical exercise is widely recognized as one of the best ways to stay healthy. You may have heard of the term physical literacy, which is a combination of motivation, physical competence, knowledge, and confidence of physical skills and movement, with the intention of making people active for life. However, I feel as though this was never applied to me, which makes my experience of sport and exercise extremely ableist and inequitable. I understand the goal is for people, from a very young age, to learn to see exercise and fitness as part of their everyday lives, which has very obvious health benefits. It is very important that people with disabilities aren't excluded from this, and that practitioners in all services, especially health and education, are specifically trained to encourage and support everyone, even those with very limited mobility, to exercise. They should also be able to signpost to other services in other sectors. I am currently working with a huge network of disability sport advocates from all over the north of England to address the inequality in exercise opportunities. It is only now, at age 17, that I have found my own meaningful way to exercise for the first time in my life. I attend an adapted gym in Gateshead, with equipment specially designed to aid me to exercise. My current lateral pull-down weight is 95 kilos. I am toned and strong, and able to feel pride in my body. I can also take part in cardio activities. The week of the Great North Run, I set myself a personal challenge and completed over 13 miles on the handbike in one go. As it turns out, I am stronger in some ways than most of my peers. I never thought I'd say that. I wish I had been introduced to meaningful exercise sooner and feel failed by the education system, which essentially excluded me from the physical and mental benefits of exercise. Some teachers tried to include me in their PE lessons, but no one ever thought about how I could exercise. If you work with people with disabilities, please make it your business to support them to move and be active in any way they can. Even if they can raise their heart rate by 10 beats a minute, it is still something. If you would like to learn about the Disability Sport Network I mentioned, make a note now to get in touch with me. As for the rest of my health, I make good food choices, drink lots of water and choose not to smoke, vape or drink alcohol. Having the background I have, I feel motivated to be as healthy as possible, plus I want to set a good example to my team as a trainee football coach. Connected care is not just about services working together. It is about helping people take ownership of their own health with the right support around them. The word transition is a literal swear word in my house. The battles we have had to get my support in place, particularly for my post-16 transition, have been nothing short of horrendous. In my usual style, I did not fit the mould or pathways designed for young people with disabilities in my area. I had my own goals and ambitions and wanted to pursue them. It felt as though I was navigating a path no one had tread before, as no one seemed to know how to piece my support needs together. I had chosen to merge my education, health and social care budgets together to be able to employ my own PAs. It took almost a year from the date of my review to finalise my AHP for college, which meant my support was not in place when I started. It was a rocky start, but I just kept going, despite the toll on my mental health. Merging the budgets from different funding streams was so troublesome. Services work in silos and do not communicate. This disconnection between services can directly harm outcomes for young people moving between systems. Jumping ahead to the present day, I have two amazing PAs, Jack, who is here next to me today, and Andrew. My life has completely transformed. My family have more support to help with my needs. I have freedom and independence for the first time in my life. Jack and Andrew also support with my health needs too. They come to my hospital appointments, do my physio and meet all my personal care needs. They are more than carers or support assistants. It is like having two big brothers who truly get me and want the best for me. Every year, when my provision is reviewed, it is very stressful. It is so important that all elements of my budget continue seamlessly. I especially feel very in the dark about my health budget, how it is calculated, and what my ongoing eligibility is. This is very important in a combined budget, as if one element is removed, it will affect how I can be supported. A well-designed connected care system would ensure these budgets are managed collaboratively and transparently, with no loss of continuity. A real difficulty I have found is the many disagreements services have over who should pay for what. I have attended meetings where arguments have taken place in front of me over this, which is just another example of poor communication between services. There should be shared responsibility, clear pathways, shared funding models, and above all, respect for the person at the centre. So, to summarise my post-16 transition, despite the awful time we went through, the overall outcome is 100% positive. I strongly advocate for more young people to opt for a combined budget, as there are so many benefits to having the control, flexibility and choice over your support. The process of getting there needs to be much easier though. I always say, never moan about something if you are not prepared to try and fix it. I have spoken with two government ministers about transitions, especially the post-16 cliff edge. I am about to embark on some work around transitions with service managers in social care, which I instigated recently. I have already reached out to managers in education and had a response. In terms of transitions, however, for young people with AHCPs with a health element, it is vital that health services understand their role also. Busy practitioners with high caseloads struggle to attend meetings, deliver reports on time, or at all in some cases, or manage timely follow-ups. I have found that accountability for statutory duties is, at best, hit and miss. The system must allow for these duties to be met, as it is the system, not the workers, that prevent it from happening. We need to see shared accountability, joint reviews, and digital coordination to support practitioners to meet their duties more effectively. I would just like to point out something which is a personal bugbear of mine. Nobody my age without a special need or disability transitions. They just call it growing up. What makes people think that I can just switch from being a child to an adult just like that? I think practitioners would answer that by telling me about this thing called preparation for adulthood. It describes how a young person with sense should be supported throughout their teenage years and continuously and seamlessly into adulthood. This applies to education, health and social care. The thing is, in my experience, preparation for adulthood has been non-existent despite advocating and asking for it. I wonder how many of you here today are involved in meaningful preparation for adulthood journeys with young people with AHCPs. A connected care approach would ensure preparation for adulthood is not an optional extra. It would be a coordinated journey shared across services. For young people with disabilities, there is a health transitions nursing team. However, I do not meet the criteria for this service in Sunderland. This is because I do not have a learning disability. I believe this is wrong and there is a gap in service for young people like me who have a complex range of ongoing health needs. Service managers in the room, please take note to action this, as this is unfair and leaves people like me completely unsupported. I may not have a learning disability, however there are multiple factors making it much more difficult for me to look after my own health needs, such as communication difficulties, complete reliance on others for independence, memory and organisational issues, and dyscalculia. I have so many paediatric practitioners who will disappear and don't really know how these needs will be met in future. This uncertainty shows exactly why we must bridge the gap between paediatric and adult systems, so no one feels abandoned when they move on. Something I am very passionate about is co-production. The term is used quite a lot, but not always in the right way. I have been involved in co-production for many years as part of my youth advocacy work. Looking back though, it wasn't always co-production. It was a tokenistic, ticky box exercise. Real co-production is a collaborative process where service providers work together to design, develop, and deliver a service. The people who are directly affected by the service have a say in how it is created and managed. This starts at the very beginning, not halfway through or at the end. Co-production involves shared decision-making, meaning everyone has an equal say. Service users have active participation, which means they are not just consulted, they contribute meaningfully. There needs to be mutual respect between practitioners and service users. There also needs to be power sharing, so authority and responsibility are distributed. We are all equal in the process. Co-production means working with, rather than doing to. In short, services should do nothing about us, without us. An example of where I have been involved in excellent co-production is with Sunderland Wheelchair Services. I am a big believer in celebrating success. I also think that if people do a really good job, we should tell them. It is all too easy to complain, but people are really motivated by positive comments and compliments. Emma Anderson and Tracy Rumford are delivering a session this afternoon all about this. I don't think a spoiler alert is needed, though, because you can't celebrate success too much. Plus, I am sharing from a service user perspective and how it has improved my life. I have had a power wheelchair since the age of 3. As I grew, my posture has become much more complex due to complications of having cerebral palsy. I needed good postural management 24/7. By age 11, the wheelchair I had was completely unsuitable for me. I was slipping down all of the time. I was in pain, uncomfortable, and it was affecting my whole life. My wheelchair basically holds me up and shapes my whole body. Out of the many services I use, wheelchair services is by far the most important for me. Without my wheelchair, I have no mobility at all, and therefore no independence or ability to do anything or go anywhere. After finally getting to the top of a very long waiting list, the service I received from wheelchair services did not meet my needs. I was not given a proper assessment from a trained therapist, and I was given off-the-peg seating, then discharged. My problems continued. We decided to make a complaint to wheelchair services, which sounds negative, doesn't it? But actually, if people don't make formal complaints when they are warranted, then how does a service know it is failing its users? The response we got to the complaint was extremely positive. Seeing the state I was in my chair, the service was immediately proactive, setting up a Teams call with the head of service and strategic manager for therapies. A specialist occupational therapist from another service was drafted in to do an urgent assessment of my postural needs, which was all done at home. A bespoke seating service was commissioned to design a moulded chair, which was, at the time, not on offer through the service. Since then, I have had a range of bespoke seats made for me as I have grown, which have made a huge difference to my life and are now available for others too. The Wheelchair User Forum was set up to make the service into what the users wanted and needed and has now been running for years. I will let Emma and Tracy give you the details of how the forum operates, but for those not in that group this afternoon, these are some of the changes that have made the biggest difference, which I am sure could be applied to many other services too. Wheelchair Services utilises a range of communication methods, and service users have multiple ways they can engage with and contact them. There is now a review system in place, whereas before there was none. As a growing child, it was hard to get appointments to match my growth, and I ended up growing out of my chair multiple times. The service has employed and trained more specialist wheelchair assessors and reduced waiting times, monitoring this regularly. They have introduced school clinics, reviewed the way wheelchairs are repaired and maintained, ensured wheelchair personal budgets are offered, and much more. I can honestly say the changes to the service massively improved my posture, my comfort, my pain levels, my independence, and my life in general. Wheelchair services do nothing about us, without us, and I believe they wouldn't even want to. This partnership is what connected care looks like when done right. Relationships built on respect, shared purpose, and continuous dialogue. I think what wheelchair services have done should be shared with as many services as possible to demonstrate the impact co-production can have when it is done really well. I hope you have picked up on the fact that, in general, I am super positive, look for answers to problems, and don't complain without offering to help make things better. Unfortunately, there are times when things go wrong. I am going to share with you my recent experiences regarding my right hip joint, which causes me a great deal of pain every day. I wrote all the facts down and, to be honest, it felt too long, too negative and too much like complaining. So, I had an idea. By the power of artificial intelligence, I bring to you the story of brave Sam and the broken bridge. Once upon a time, in a bright and bustling kingdom, there lived a young hero named Sam. Sam was known throughout the land for courage, laughter, and the extraordinary power of optimism. No matter what trials came along, Sam always looked for answers instead of anger, hope instead of blame, and kindness instead of complaint. But one day, a shadow crept over Sam's world, a shadow that lived deep in the bones. It began quietly, as a whisper of pain in the right hip, a place that had always been loyal through many battles of childhood. Sam had faced dragons before, the dragon of tight muscles, the beast of long hospital days, the storm of operations. But this time, something was different. The healers of the kingdom had always watched over Sam carefully. They were wise surgeons and kind-hearted pediatricians who understood Sam's story and worked together like a well-tuned orchestra. Their clinic was a place of magic, a circle of trust where everyone talked, shared notes, and kept the rhythm of care steady. It was a shining example of connected care. Then one season, the two chief healers left the kingdom. One went north, one went west, and the golden circle fell silent. No one picked up the music again. The scrolls that told Sam's story were tucked away in dusty cupboards. The magic of communication, the golden thread that tied everything together, began to unravel. Time passed. The pain grew. Sam's family knocked on many doors, but the doors opened slowly. The watchers were busy with other quests. "We will call you soon," they said. Wait a little longer. When at last Sam stood before a new healer, the truth was laid bare like a thunderclap. The hip joint, once strong and loyal, had crumbled away. The path that might have healed it was gone. Years of courage and effort had led to this dark crossroad. Sam did not cast blame. Heroes rarely do. Instead, Sam wondered how things might have been different if the healers had stayed connected. If their voices had been joined by magic scrolls that could travel between castles, carrying every story safely. If someone, somewhere, had remembered to pass the torch before the light went out. And from that sadness came a spark, a new quest. Sam became the storyteller of connected care. The idea that no one should ever be lost between one door and the next. That every healer, every helper, and every person should hold the same mark, so no piece of a person's story is ever missing. Sam's message spread through the kingdom like sunlight. When people talk to each other, when they listen, when they care together, no one's health suffers from too much communication, but it can suffer deeply from too little. And so, the tale of the lost hip became a tale of found purpose. A story told not with bitterness, but with bravery, kindness, and hope. And they are still telling it today in the kingdom of connected care. I don't know for sure that I could have had a better outcome for my hip, but I do know that there were gaps in the management of my care. This is where connected care could have made all the difference. Consistent monitoring, shared data, and communication between clinicians would have ensured nothing was missed. The outcome may have been the same, but I will never know. When communication breaks down, even the best practitioners can only see part of the picture. As you can see, I can communicate very effectively, but there is no way I could do this with my speaking voice. It would not be clear enough or loud enough, and I would not have the stamina to speak for so long. When I first began youth voice work, I didn't have a communication aid. I used my own speaking voice and other methods to communicate. As I mentioned, I won the Sunderland Young Achievers Award 4 years ago. This is my nomination video I sent in to the judges when I didn't have my communication aid, or talker as I call it. This was the best I could communicate what I wanted to say. After winning the award, I decided that I needed a better voice so I could communicate more effectively. So we started to investigate ways that I could begin using my tech voice in my groups. After talking with some of the practitioners we work with about what we were trying to do, they were really keen to help. We called our group Project Voice. We soon had a team including my occupational therapist, speech therapist, assistive technology team and my advocacy group leaders. Because I could speak, I had never explored the possibility of a communication aid. But I had so much to say and wanted to express myself clearly and more easily. The project was a roaring success. I tried various devices and apps which the team helped me select based on a list of criteria of things I wanted to be able to do. I wanted the voice to be loud enough for big rooms. I needed to be able to pre-program my device for presentations, and there were limitations to what I could use because of limited hand function. I was invited back to the Sunderland Young Achievers Awards the year after winning to make a speech in front of hundreds of people, which I will share with you now. Compare this with my nomination video you just watched. You will notice a big difference.
Listen very closely, this is high-tech technology. Over to you, Sam.
Hello, my name is Sam. Last year, I was the winner in the Personal Achievement category, which made me feel amazing. I then went on to win the overall Andy Neal Award, which was a huge surprise. Firstly, I want to explain why I chose to use my technology to talk to you tonight. Even though I can talk, it can be difficult for me sometimes, and also sometimes difficult for people to understand. I think it is really important for people to be able to communicate what they want to say and not be held back. I can now choose to use my iPhone to help me talk in any situation. The other day, I ordered for myself in Costa for the first time. Woohoo! This is my first time using my technology in front of a lot of people. My mom will definitely be doing this. I want to tell you what it means to me to have one. Since last year, everything was done online, and I didn't get the opportunity. I won the award because of my hard work and perseverance through difficult times. I am also an ambassador for my school and my city, as I participate in lots of youth voice groups. People generally admire my attitude, as I am very determined and positive. I feel as though it is a big achievement for someone with a disability like mine to be able to overcome challenges and do the things you might not think I can. I like to think of myself as differently abled, rather than disabled, as it sounds more positive. I am very proud of my achievements and to be part of the awards again tonight. In the future, I plan to continue to advocate for young people and also to pursue my dreams of becoming a football coach. Always remember to never let things hold you back in life. If I can do it, you can do it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the night.
As you heard, Sam was last year's winner, so who's going to be this year's winner?
The one thing that Project Voice didn't give me was probably the most important thing on my list. I wanted a Geordie accent. Your voice is a big part of your identity, and so is your accent. Last year, I was referred to the Regional Communication Aid Service, who offer more specialist devices. I swapped my posh voice for Geordie Steve, as he is known as. He still doesn't sound like me, but the way technology is moving, I am sure they will work that out before long. Project Voice was a perfect example of connected care. Services communicating across boundaries, listening to lived experience, and co-designing solutions that changed my life. I'm here today, speaking to you loud and clear, with my regional accent, because the power of communication gave me the power of communication. Everywhere I go, I talk about equity. If there is one thing I want to achieve, it is for everyone to understand what it is. Lots of people talk about equality, but it is not the same thing. Equity is focused on outcomes. So, for example, if the outcome was to be able to have a drink, I would need a straw, but most people don't. I need something different to be able to drink. Equality is all being given a drink of water. Equity is giving everyone what they need to be able to drink it. You can also think of it as different-sized people trying to see over a wall. They all need different-sized boxes to stand on. Everyone achieves the same outcome because they can now see over the wall. Someone might need an expensive box. It might even need a ramp. It is not about spreading the costs equally, though. It is about equal outcomes. Some people won't even need a box at all. This video of me is a demonstration of equity in action. It proves that, if you are given what you need, you can do anything. It was a few years ago now, at a place called Bendrick Trust. People could learn a lot from their attitude to disability. I want to leave you with one simple message. Everything we do in health, care and community life starts and ends with connection. My story is proof that when services talk to each other, when they talk to us and not about us, outcomes improve. It is also proof that when they don't, things can go wrong. But the amazing thing is, connected care is within our reach. It is not about creating new systems. It is about connecting existing cogs together and getting them turning and keeping them turning. So, my challenge to you is this. Wherever you work, whatever your role, ask yourself, how am I connecting care? Am I helping to join the dots, or am I adding another layer of confusion? Because no one's health will ever suffer from too much communication, but it will always suffer from too little. Together, through empathy, equity, and connected care, we can make sure every person is seen, heard, and supported as a whole. To close, I would like to share my finalist video from the National Diversity Awards in the hope of inspiring you to dream big and live bigger and help others do the same.
Despite his differently abled body and the struggles that he's had to overcome in his own life, he is the most incredibly positive advocate for other people so that they're not disadvantaged and can reach their dreams.
From being disabilities officer at the student union in college to speaking to members of parliament, Sam has achieved some amazing things. He is so inspirational, and everybody he meets, he leaves a lasting impression on.
Sam is a brilliant guy to be around. He's like a brother to me. He tries to bring positive change for other people in similar situations.
Basically, Sam, to me, is one of those people who'll just give anything to anyone, and he dedicates his time to the betterment of other people.
And thanks for everything you're doing to raise awareness on these really important issues and to be a voice for other young people as well. It's really impressive, so thanks a lot, Sam.
Huge congratulations to Sam.
I am so proud of you, and you deserve this so much, Sam.
And I cannot think of anyone that's more deserving of winning this award.
Awards exist like this because of Sam.
Please make sure you take my leaflet and check out my website. Scan the QR code on screen and on your tables to leave questions or comments. I would love to read them, and I will be sure to answer them all. If you or anyone you know needs someone to co-produce, promote, advocate, motivate, participate, consult or train, think Sam Ogle and get in touch. Thank you.